Order, and we'll ask for a roll call from our Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor John Harabedian.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem John Caposcia.
Here.
Councilmember Rochelle Arizmendi.
Present.
Councilmember Jean Goss.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum and may conduct city business.
Thank you. We will have a pledge and inspiration, and I will lead that. Please stand. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. And very quickly, while everyone's still standing, I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to our veterans. We did celebrate Veterans Day on Monday. And for those that serve, thank you very much. And also just to moment of silence for Barry Gold, who passed away last week. And I didn't go to the service, but I know some of the council members did. And we'll do a moment for him. Thank you. And we will have a report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session this evening with its city attorney to receive a briefing on a matter of existing litigation, CETT versus City of Sierra Madre. No action was taken, but direction was provided to legal counsel. The City Council also met in closed session for the annual performance evaluation of the city manager, and direction was provided to the city attorney and Mr. England, and that is the end of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we'll have an approval of the meeting agenda. Any changes to that?
No changes?
I move to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the minutes, we have two sets of minutes. Any changes to either?
I have one question about the October 22 minutes. Did we agree, was there a consensus for a need to appoint Denise's?
No.
Minutes reflect that there was and I didn't think there was, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's on page 10 of 11.
Right.
Oh, that's a good catch.
Say again, where's?
Its discussion occurred, there was consensus to have the election to fill the remainder of Councilmember Del Mar's term, then bullet point number 2 for need to appoint a replacement. So just strike that. Bullet point number 2. That's page 10 of 11. It's right in the middle of the page.
Yep.
Oh, here, I got it. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, just strike number 2.
Okay. With that change?
Okay, I'll move to approve both sets.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. Okay, Mayor and City Council reports. Start to my left. Councilmember Arizmendi, anything to report?
I have nothing, but it looks like we have PD here for another reason. Hopefully somebody can say something during public comment about the No Shave November and the fundraising you're doing. I can see the mustaches across from here, so hopefully someone else can say something about that. But there is an effort there for No Shave November.
Yeah, just one thing. On Saturday night, all 4 of us were able to attend the Night Under the Stars
Yes.
celebration honoring our police and fire department. And it was just it was put on by Vic at Corfu, and there was live music, and it was just a marvelous evening for a great cause. And I just wanted to compliment Vic. And by the way, Laura Aguilar, our assistant city clerk, was there, and she did so much work to put that whole thing together. So kudos to you too, Laura.
That was fun.
It was.
2 things. I did attend a conference for the Clean Power Alliance, although I shouldn't even say this, but I missed the first day because of a calendar misfunction. I have this problem being retired now, but I did go to most of the second day. And the Clean Power Alliance, again, is our power provider that Sierra Madre opted into, that is allowing us to provide cleaner power and or less expensive power if you choose to opt down to have the same rate of percentage of clean power. You can get it, as Edison's providing, you can get it for a cheaper rate. I'm hoping, though, that all of you that are environmentally minded would opt for the 100% clean power and pay a little bit more. And I just want to say that, like a person like me who has a small carbon footprint on some things and a very large carbon footprint on the vehicles I drive. This is my way of kind of offsetting that a little bit, so I don't feel so guilty about driving these antique cars. But anyway, so that was really good. There's a lot of people there, and even people that are starting another similar community choice aggregation in the Santa Barbara area, so they were there to learn something about it. There's quite a bit of momentum going towards that, and it's a very positive future, it looks like, for the Clean Power Alliance. So I'm hoping at some point we can either provide even a higher percentage of clean power or even better lower our rates a little bit for our citizens. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, have that senior moment again.
Was it Barry? No?
No.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mosquito vector.
Mosquito, yeah, is mosquitoes?
Vector?
No, I don't
Okay.
have anything on the mosquitoes this week, but,
Yeah, I'll just, I'll say that I know our VFW post had a event on Sunday for Veterans Day, and I hear it was great. And I do think that, moment of silence for Barry Gold. I'll just say that Barry Gold was someone who we all will miss here at council. I mean, he was such an articulate man, and whenever he spoke at council, I think everyone listened really intently. And I do think that his wife Judy is still living here and surviving him, and I think that Barry was really some of the things that he did here in a very relatively short amount of time were really great, and I think we'll miss his wit and his intellect, and he did run for city council in 2016. So I just wanted to make sure in my report that we did just mention him and his legacy here. Yes.
yeah, I would just also like to thank Pat Elkhorn, Dee Elkhorn, Gary Hood, and
Yes.
yeah, for their for their effort and citizens' effort to push through. I shouldn't say push through, but to show voters how it was a smart thing to do to enact our sales tax increase. We achieved almost 81%, and that's phenomenal that you folks voted in favor of that, because it makes sense. I mean, Claremont failed theirs, and several other cities passed the same measure, but nobody came as close to Sierra Madre in getting up to 81%. So that was one heck of an effort, and we thank you for that, and it's a good thing for Sierra Madre.
Here, here.
We
here,
all
here.
do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll open this up for public comment for items not on the agenda.
Good evening, Leslie Hinton on Acacia Street. I haven't been here for a while. The other day I started thinking about our smoking ordinance in open air places and restaurants. And I realized that the new cigarettes that are so popular, the e-cigarettes, which are causing so much harm to our country as a whole, are not included in the ordinance. As of October 1st this year, there are 892 municipalities, 19 states, and 2 territories that include e-cigarettes as prohibited, products that are prohibited in smoke-free environments. And I would just urge the council to take a look at the ordinance and consider including the e-cigarettes and vaping as part of our ordinance. I have a very short paper that I will pass out to all of you. And thank you.
Any other comments?
John Hiller here, Baha'i, from last month's invocation. Just wanted to tell you that if any service projects are out there, I'm letting you know that we're there for service projects. We have to get some cards printed up or something. This is what I got for you right here. So,
Thank you.
We're here to extend our gratitude to the emergency services here in town, the paramedics, the firefighters, and the police. They all responded to a 911 call on October 24th, 5 a.m. in the morning. Our daughter woke up crying and then went into what we later learned was a cardiac arrest. My wife was on the call with 911. I was attending to my daughter's CPR and trying to make sense of what's going on. And in no time, the police and the paramedics were at the door. I just moved my daughter from her bedroom to the living room because I knew that she needed all the attention and provide more room for the first responders. I just put her down and they were there. They started CPR and they were able to save it. Our daughter. Alicia, come here. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you see, she's as beautiful as before.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was quite harrowing having to see, no response, no breathing. We learned that there was 7 to 8 minutes of work that they had to do. Quite a tense moment for them. I want to thank to everybody that came to that call. We talked with Mr. Estrada that he was. Go ahead.
And the other two officers.
The police officers.
police
We don't know the
officer.
names.
Sorry. it's
But
just-
They're in the back.
if our gratitude is,
They've done this before.
Yes,
This is becoming old hat for them. Do you guys want to come forward, please?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Want to say something, Alicia?
Can you say
Say
something?
something?
Okay, say something.
Say, no?
Right here.
She's okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You don't want to?
something.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you so much.
Guys, come back up. I would just like to face the crowd, guys. Like to introduce these gentlemen and one lady. This is Sierra Madre Police Department Dispatcher Michelle Huyanate. Next to her is Corporal Luis Castillo. Next to him is FTO Field Training Officer Joe Lascano. Over here is firefighter paramedic Ryan Torncello. And next to him is Esteban Estrada, firefighter paramedic.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Do you guys want to come in? Yeah.
They live next door to each other.
It's a really great story. Wasn't it just last year?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it was literally just a few months ago that we honored those officers for saving another life, and so you know, there's not much more that we can say other than just thank you. I mean, obviously, you guys are and our firefighters and the whole team. You continually amaze us just at how great you guys are and how lucky we are to have you. So, thank you for coming forward and recognizing them and obviously we have a life here that was saved because of you guys. So, unbelievable. Yeah, thank you.
Sergeant Bailey and Captain Bartlett.
Oh, it's in there.
Kyle Bailey with Sierra Madre PD. How you doing? Captain Brent Bartlett with Fire. So, good evening, Council. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time to explain this program that both the police and fire department have collaborated together with. We were getting a little worried that you guys were going to start fielding phone calls about our beards and scruffiness. So we figured we'd come in here and explain to the city and you folks what we're doing here. We're actually, we've joined a partnership with City of Hope and their, as part of the Prostate Cancer Awareness Month for the month of November. Part of that entails us growing out our facial hair, and for the females, they'll be wearing no shaver badges. The idea behind it is to stimulate conversation, bring awareness to prostate cancer, which affects 1 out of every 7 men ages 50 and over. It's designed to bring awareness, and in addition to that, we've are going to be doing things to raise raise funds for their efforts. We've created a campaign page, both the police and fire departments, and we're just asking for public assistance in that area to help us contribute. We set a goal of $5,000. 100% of the proceeds go to City of Hope. And as part of that, we've also we wanted to announce that we've arranged to bring in a doctor of urology from City of Hope to come in next week at 6:30, November 19th, for an open forum that's open to the community, and just learn a little bit more about prostate cancer and how people are affected by it. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that we included the community in our efforts, and we thought, what could we do that would be just something fun and different? And we came up with an idea to allow the community at the end of the campaign to vote on who they felt wore the best beard, mustache. So follow our social media channels for that, and you can learn a little bit more about how to assist us with it. And again, we just appreciate your time and helping us out with getting on board with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
always has this mustache.
Okay. No more public comment? Okay, well, thank you all. And we'll move on to our consent agenda at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 4 items this evening. First one is Professional Services Agreement for Housing Element Update 2021 through 2029. Item B, Consideration of Urgency Ordinance 1420-U, repealing Chapter 9.48 of the City of Sierra Madre Municipal Code. Item C, Consideration of Resolution 19-58, authorizing application for and receipt of SB2 Planning Grants Program funds. And the last one is D, Consideration of Resolution 19-21, approving certain demands. And that concludes the consent items.
Thank you. Any questions on 1A?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
It's a price of this, for this contract. To update the housing element, this consultant has done this before for us. Why is?
She did the last cycle, yes.
What did it cost us last time on the last cycle? I couldn't find that we ever, I saw where the RFP came to us for approval. I never saw it come back where we approved it. So
In the 2008 or 2014 cycle. I looked that up. I believe it was about $25,000.
why is it so much now?
I asked the same question, and looking at the other bid that came back, they're coming in very similarly.
Yeah.
And I sent out 5 RFPs and 3 declined. I think they're selecting larger cities, but costs have gone up considerably.
Is it that much more complicated?
Yeah, that's the other factor. I'll just offer. I can't comment on why this consultant is charging more, but I will offer that the law has changed a lot since the last time you updated your housing element. There have been a rash of new housing laws since 2017, and they keep coming. And so this consultant will be required as part of the analysis to look over your existing housing element and your existing ordinances and tell you what needs to be updated, compliant, et cetera. And I would assume that's going to take more time
Yeah.
than if those changes in the law hadn't occurred.
Wow, I'm just blown away by that.
Yeah.
So every 4 years, we're gonna have to do this? Every 8 years? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of hours that the company's predicting to spend it's extremely high. And the number of units that they're predicting that we have to actually zone for is literally 10 times of last cycle, so.
We have our numbers already?
Well, they put the prospective numbers, and it's really, really high, yeah.
Yeah, we have seen the suggested numbers.
The
are
suggested number is
higher.
130
Yeah.
for the, one of the methodologies, but that is likely to change.
It could be as high as 500.
Some of the methodologies went as high as 600.
Yes.
Another 500. So they were across the board. The 4th methodology came down to about 130, but again, likely to change.
Okay. Any other questions on 1A? 1B? 1C? And 1D? Okay, we'll open this up for questions and public comment, the consent calendar. And seeing none, we'll bring it back. Any further discussion?
Move to approve.
Second?
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Consent items are approved. We'll go on to first public hearing, AB 1600, Annual Compliance Report for Development Impact Fee Activity.
Good evening, Mayor Abedian and City Council. I'm presenting the annual AB 1600 Annual Compliance Report for the Development Fund Fees Use. California Government Code Section 66006 requires cities imposing public facility fees to prepare an annual accounting of the revenue expenditures in each of the funds, as well as the explanation as to the use of the funds. The city received no development impact fees during fiscal year 18-19. Interest income of $24,000 was received and distributed ratably across fund categories. Project expenditures of approximately $387,000 occurred, leaving an ending balance of $1,004,000. Details of the projects that were approved and were completed, underway, or pending by fee category are shown in Attachment A and are summarized as follows. General government category included the upgrade of City Hall restrooms to ADA compliance for about $28,000, and the commencement of the City Council chambers upgrade for $21,400. Transportation category included the first part of the state mandated traffic study at $10,400. Water facility fees included $213,000 in expenditures for the digital water meter upgrade and an equal 50-50 split of the maintenance yard office expansion cost of $114,000. Attachment B projects approved in June of this year that are underway or are pending include the general government projects, including the conclusion of the council chambers upgrade for an additional $8,600 and the recarpeting project for the Emergency Operations Center for $9,000. Public safety included the debt service funds for the city's fire engine for $50,000, which was carried over into the current year. Transportation category included the conclusion of the state mandated traffic study for $3,500 and road resurfacing project expense of $20,000. And finally, the water and sewer facility fees evenly split the remaining $50,000 cost of construction for new fencing in the entry gate for the city yard spreading routes. These projects totaled $206,000 to date and would leave a balance available in development fees of approximately $798,000 currently. Staff recommends that the City Council receive and file the annual AB 1600 compliance report for fiscal year 2018-19 in accordance with California Government Code 66006. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the financial aspects of the annual report, and Director Semino can answer any questions regarding the projects themselves.
Thank you, Director Konasek. Any questions?
Just a question in terms of future planning, and it looks like you have we'll have quite a balance even after these expenditures and these projects. Do we have any projects in the pipeline?
They're constantly being thought of and developed. I believe in 2021 we'll be called upon by that AB 1600 requirement to actually do a 5-year plan. So at that point, I think the dive will be considerably deeper to get out that far.
Great, thank you.
Good? Mayor Pro Tem, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. No more questions. We'll open this up for public comment. And bringing it back, any discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
So move for approval?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to discussion item, the Kirsten Court design and improvements.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and community members. At their July 15th, 2019 meeting, the Community Services Commission unanimously approved the design for the recommendation to City Council on the rendering for Kirsten Court project. Tonight, staff recommends for City Council, number 1, to approve the respective additional services agreement from LRM Associates totaling $32,100 for the additional trades and services necessary to fully complete the project design. Secondly, to approve the conceptual design itself for the Kirsten Court general improvement projects. And lastly, to approve Commission's recommendation for the arts and public places to fund an environmental art piece. The alternatives would be that the City Council may approve the additional services agreement from LRM in the amount of $32,100 for those additional trades and services, of which a percentage may be charged towards the grant with approval from the Regional Park and Open Space District. Or number 2, the City Council may direct staff and the board to return to a future council meeting with more information on the project design elements as well as the recommended art components. So following the meetings over the course of the past 2 years with the steering committee, the Community Services Commission, our landscape architect, residents, stakeholders, and businesses, the Sierra Madre Chamber of Commerce also assisted city management with facilitating the Christian Court Project Town Hall meeting on Monday, July 8th, 2019. This forum encouraged community members to share their feedback, which included keeping the seat wall within the project scope, creating a stage by using a raised platform with non-fixed seating, wiring with lighting and electrical components, and framing 2 trees around the stage, ADA accessibility throughout entrance or exits, and an open middle area for additional heavy non-fixed seating, and graffiti-resistant outdoor furniture, for example, chairs and tables with umbrellas. Not removing the parking, but rather working to make the parking lot more distinctive, pedestrian-friendly, and safe by potentially incorporating decorative pavers and easier to block off during special events by means of removable barricades, for example, pop-up bollards. It also included maximizing the kiosk usage by creating a history of Sierra Madre, for example, including high-resolution historic photos and descriptions of important town events. There was also the consideration of not incorporating a marquee sign into the project. Overall, enhancing the park with more tree, shade, seating, improving pedestrian access, keeping parking, adding electrical with lighting were the majority of the comments received. Consecutively, the regularly scheduled meeting with Community Services Commission then followed on Monday, July 15th, which then allowed the board to recap on those project considerations and share further discussion with the community members before their final vote. As a result, the final 3-dimensional design from the landscape architect was presented in September, and that will be shown shortly. Arts in Public Places Program. Community Services Commission is recommending an environmental art component for Christian Court through the Arts in Public Places program, which is available in the amount of $60,300. The board concurred that there are 2 blank canvases, so to speak, within the project scope, including the seating walls and the walkway pavement. So the proposed options include the following: a pavement design beautifully capturing the original peoples that lived in Sierra Madre and the red trolley that started there, a pavement design with different inlaid pavers and stones paying tribute to historical aspects, designing benches and pavement walkways with colorful geometric mosaic patterns or murals on the backing or the actual seats of the seating walls, and stonework paying historical tribute. And lastly, an outdoor lighting fixture with perhaps an imposed art design. The city does intend to work collaboratively with the Sierra Madre Historical Preservation Society as well as the Sierra Madre Library to determine those approved descriptions, designs, and photographs. As was mentioned, LRM Associates has submitted their change order with additional trades and services that range from the surveying to structural and electrical to the schematic design, including the 3D rendering. Any additional meetings after the 8 originally proposed meetings in the contract will be charged $175 per hour. As a point of reference for the source of funding under financial review, the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget does include the $300,000 awarded through the Regional Park and Open Space District, the RPOSD, excess funds grant, which was executed by the City Council this past January 2019. The change order issued in the amount of $32,100 may be submitted for for reimbursement through RPOSD. The district may review and justify from 25 up to 30% of the grant amount for the actual administrative costs incurred and/or any anticipated additional costs. Thank you, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have. Tonight, we also have present representation from our Community Services Commission. We have our current Commission Chair, Tom Sullivan. We have our Vice Chair, Karen Rowinski, and we have our former Commission Chair, David Ooch. So I'll go ahead and have Braun, our landscape architect, come on up, and he can go through the rundown of this animation. Thank you, James.
Hi, I'm Braun. I'm a landscape architect, a project manager with LRM and Associates, and it's good to be back. We started on this project. You guys have to turn around here. This is the main gathering space area. This is the raised, I'm trying to keep that still. This is the raised platform that we were talking about, that Rebecca talked about. And encompassing those areas is the 16-inch high decorative seat wall with a concrete cap and faced with the native stone that we have here. The whole idea behind this was to bring this up to ADA compliancy. So the first ADA entrance is to the north, coming into the upper platform, and then the other ADA access is by the bell tower, running down with the sidewalk. This spot right there, the stairs were removed, and the stairs off of Sierra Madre are remaining. The footprint around is pretty much following the same footprint, but the lower wall will be faced with river rock stone that's native to the area, and it will start at this lower area at about 30 inches high and then work up towards the grade and eventually disappearing into the grade because of the fall, the way the slope is out there. The main gathering area is 33 by 35 feet approximately. The upper platform area is about 18 foot in diameter. So you have around 1,100 square feet in the gathering area and about 300 plus feet in the upper platform area. They talked about expanding the project into the Kirsten Court area, where you have 2 raised crosswalks and bollards that are adjustable that you can take in and out, so they would have sleeves out there. So if you have a big gathering or something like that, you can close that off. But none of the parking will be removed. The platform, the way the platform was positioned was to take advantage of the backdrop of the Angeles Crest and the Sierra Madre, so that when you're having your big events, the gathering space could be used as for people to gather into that area and then also look up. So it's a nice placement. This is a raised planter, and it will be planted out with plant material. The flagpole where it is now is being moved to the corner of Sierra Madre and Baldwin. The existing drinking fountain is being removed from Baldwin and placed somewhere in the gathering area space per ADA code. The bell tower is not being touched, and the kiosk is still located up in the west corner of Sierra Madre and Kirsten Court. So that's kind of an idea of the layout of what we have here. And now we're going to go into the 3D fly-through. That's just an animation that's going to go through everything.
Cool.
So you have your flagpole, the bell tower, we have trees, and we'll give you an inside view. Now this is from Sierra Madre, and this will give you a close-up inside of the area what's happening. Those are the 2 existing pepper trees. That's the gathering space with the decorative seat wall, the steps. We're thinking of 1 or 2 steps up to the upper platform. The surface is a concrete with an integral color. We would do some kind of stamp paving so it's uneven to deter skateboarders. You see the faced native stone. towards the west, southwest corner.
No skateboarders.
They're flat people, but they'll pop up here. Same thing with the trees. And that's looking back from the raised platform, North Baldwin and Christine Court. That's the AD access. That's it. Questions?
Just what are raised crosswalks?
Well, they're just raised enough so it's like a bump. It's like the bumps that you feel out in the street where they have bumps to slow down the traffic speed.
okay.
It's the same kind of thing, except it's flat for a longer time, and then it's it's marked.
Okay, thank you.
Is the plants that we saw planted, is that set in stone, or is there gonna be some
No, and that's kind
flexibility?
of a marker for right now, because the plant material in the panel is going to be selected during the construction document phase.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's for staff. I'm still just not really clear on what caused the change orders. Can you explain that a little bit better? Why was there a need for change orders?
Well, I'll let Director Semino provide a more in-depth answer, but in general, we had the consultant do a lot more work than we originally requested in the RFP, and they also added additional items like construction drawings and the 3D design.
What he said?
Yeah, what he said. We didn't have the whole Kirstein Court included in the RFP. We were just starting with the seating area. So as the project grew and we brought it to the commissions, we started talking about the pavement area, and that would be more construction drawings. The banner poles will need engineering, and that wasn't in part of the RFP to replace those banner poles. The electrical would need an engineer to design to move the electrical box and add the electrical to the Kirstein Court area. Construction drawings.
Grading and all that.
Well, yeah. Construction drawings, why wasn't that included in the original one? Well, you need that, right?
Yeah, this is an inclusion of the original construction drawings of just the Kirstein Court. Now we're including the parking lot area of Kirstein Court.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just want to comment. I think it looks really nice. I don't want to complain about it. It's just that it just was a shock to me that we're having to spend more money.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions? And then we'll.
I do have a question to Director Semino, but maybe another one for the commissioners, whoever would like to address it. But I always ask about timeline. Is there a concern about the $360,000 as to when we're supposed to expend that?
Rebecca would be.
We will work with the county to extend any timelines on the 300,000, the 60,000 art and public places, the city controls. The timeline, we need, Director Semino and I need to meet with the businesses and determine when is the least impactful time to go forward with this. We think it'll take 6 to 8 weeks to construct, so we have to do it at a time that's convenient for businesses, while also not displacing some of our marquee events downtown. And then we have to layer in the art and public places on top of that, which may or may not move forward at the same time as the construction based on the recommendation. So it will manage multiple timelines as we move forward, but we have no reason to believe the funding will be at issue based on the timeline we adopt.
So this is probably a two-part question then. So when there is a charge beyond the 8 meetings, where are we now and how many do we expect given the timeline? And the second piece to this is really more directed to the commissioners. And this came to us before, and I know this has been a long process, maybe a couple of years I think we're at now. And just to understand, there's been so many iterations of this, and it's significantly scaled back from different iterations we've seen in the past. And just kind of to understand from the commission's perspective as to why the process was so long, and Director Semino wants to walk away on that one. And just, you know, how we can, for future projects, ensure that we're a little more timely, because I don't know if there's a financial impact on this also, again, given those 8 meetings and change orders too.
I understand your pain in the timely process there. I wish I really had a good answer for that, only other than we took on, you know, some new people within that position, and they had some other views on that project and shared it with the commission, and so I guess we all didn't see eye to eye, you know, to start on some of this, and so that definitely I know had an effect on the timely factor. You know, personally, I would have, you know, and I'm sure the council would have loved to see this come to you a lot sooner, but unfortunately it didn't. So as far as future projects, that's hard to say. You know, we're working with, you know, 5 or 6 other individuals, so I would hope we could, you know, really come together as one right away and get something, you know, put through in a more efficient time frame, you know, than this project. But I know it definitely has been scaled back, but I guess that was the main view of the commission, to kind of really not involve a lot of structures and other things that were in those initial designs, and the commission felt that minimalist design and, you know, not impacting the area was the best route, and it just took, you know, a lot more meetings than I think we had all planned on. So Tom Sullivan, Chair Commission.
So as a follow-up to that, was there a financial or fiscal impact because of the length of time for the decision-making?
We had, Councilmember Arizmendi, we had to ask the county for an extension on our grant. When we were awarded the $300,000, it was for a project that would be, it was called shovel-ready, but how they defined that was ready for construction within that fiscal year. We have exceeded the original time frame. Again, we don't have a concern at this point that we'll have to extend it again. Based on the design that we have, we do think we can finish it within that time frame. If there were further delays outside of that, then of course we may have to ask for another extension, and we'd have to report back to council.
Councilmember Goss had a question?
It was kind of a technical question. Maybe you guys can answer, or Director Semino. I noticed all these beautiful paving stones in the parking area. They look great. That's a great concept. But I'm thinking, maybe you've thought of this, the cars will be dripping oil. And pavement kind of hides that because it's black. But so I'm just thinking, can we get some kind of a special type of stone that would be more impervious to that, or is that even going to be clean? Will this mean that it'll have to be cleaned more regularly, or?
Good question.
I think for the diagram, we have really identified the parking area with that mosaic up there.
It looks great.
When we do the parking, it's going to be more of a stamped asphalt.
Okay.
For the parking area. So it won't be the pavers inset. That'll be more of the cursing court and the sidewalk around.
That answers the question. Thank you, Director Singh.
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got 4 alternatives, or any permutation of those 4 for the art and public places. How are we going to get to a decision on what's going to be done?
As staff understands, the recommendation from the Community Services Commission is we will incorporate some or all of the components. What staff intends to do at this point is work with our consultant to determine exactly what types of materials will be used, and then we will work with the concept or multiple concepts put forward by the CSC that work with that type of construction project. Because they're the recommendation is a concept. It both allows a little bit more freedom, but it is also going to be harder to define at this stage exactly how we're moving forward. We do have a pretty good handle on what we want to do at the kiosk area, but some of the other ideas, such as artistic lighting or a different design on the seating, is going to come back to what works with the actual construction elements that the consultant's recommending. So I think the likely outcome of this is a little more work as we move forward on the actual construction, a little more work on the art and public places, and then we will come back to the city council with final recommendations for council approval.
Yeah, my concern is, given how much time it took to get to this point, I just don't want to see the same thing happen now with the art part of it. I mean,
Mayor Pro Tem, we share that concern. It's one of the reasons we're moving forward with construction, and we'll try and trail with the art and public places. To Councilmember Arizmendi's point, we don't want to have to go back and ask for another extension. So we're sensitive to that as well. The recommendations by the CSC are very well thought out, but they're still in the conceptual phase, so we'll continue to work until we can get something back to council.
Following up on that, maybe because we have been talking about this art and public places thing for years, is it possible that we could set a deadline and kind of force a decision? Because it seems like this is something that just keeps eluding us.
Councilmember Gauss, I think the decision now is with council. So you will see us back with recommendations that will be known and understood before the final council approval.
Basic question before we'll open up for public comment. How much of our 300,000 is left, and what is the total budget, do we think, through construction and finalization, and how much will we have to probably pay for it ourselves outside of the grant?
So we have, I believe, 270,000 left in the grant, give or take. We have all of the art and public spaces left. We don't have a firm estimate on cost yet, though we do believe it's going to be close to what the grant is. If it exceeds that amount, you'll likely see it come from Quimby or Parks impact fees, or potentially general fund surplus, so that would be less likely scenario.
So we didn't pay the original LRM amount from the grant money then, right? Because of...
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, the total can be a quarter of the total grant for LRM, and I believe, and I'll let, she's nodding her head yes, but I'll let Rebecca explain it fully.
Yeah, because if the change order is 32,000, that means we've paid something other than that, right? So I think...
So the initial contract with LRM was 63,003. The change order is 32,001. Up to 30% of administrative costs can be charged towards the grant per review of RPOSD.
And we're right there then. I mean, we've already pretty much hit it.
So, and we have the total of 300,000. And as city manager said, in addition, the art and public places is separate from that.
Yep. Okay. So we have about 200,000 left then. Okay. Well, I guess my only, we'll open up for public comment, and then we'll have conversation when we come back. We'll get back. Any questions or public comment?
I'm Pat Alcorn, and I live on Grandview. And what can I say? This project has been going on for 7 years, and as Dee reminded me, that's longer than World War II. So, and I jokingly said to Rebecca the other day, or well, it was about 6 months ago, that I hope this project gets done before I die. So I think the original concept is good, the concept that was presented, but I have a couple of nitpicky things. And the first one is the art in public places. There was a discussion at the last commission meeting that they threw out some suggestions. And there was also a suggestion that there would be a call for artists to complete or present some sort of art in public places. And so they finally came up with the, in their motion, environmental art component. But I didn't understand that it was limited to these, what four things that were suggested at the commission meeting. And I would hate that you would vote to approve that until that discussion can be resolved at the next commission meeting. Although I think Karen Lewinsky, Commissioner Lewinsky came up with a wonderful idea of a mosaic of a trolley car. So that might be some other thing. Also, though, it's in the staff report, they mentioned that the city intends to collaborate with the Historical Preservation Society and the library to determine what this art in public place is going to be. And it seems to me that it should be the artists in the community rather than the city or the library. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll bring it back, and so really, a couple things to discuss. I think I think we'll just start off by generally speaking, are we okay with the change order, the design, separately, and then we can talk about, I think, the art in public places. So that first question, I'm happy to weigh in. I really like the design. I think that it came out really nicely, and I think this has created now really an epicenter, a place where we can have events in the middle of town, where otherwise we really couldn't in Kirsten Court because of the ADA issues and how it's set up now. And so I do want to thank the commission for all the hard work. I mean, I will love to see this when it's done, because I just think it's going to be a lot more conducive to community gatherings, and that's the whole idea. And I do appreciate LRM for all the hard work and everything. You know, obviously, it's more expensive than we thought, but you know, it sounds like it was something we had to do given the circumstances. But I really do like it, and I'm fine with the concept and with the change order.
Okay, I'll comment.
Yep.
I like it too. I remember when we started the thing out, I remember some of the different designs that were out there, and I understand the Community Service Commission went through heck trying to boil this all down. And so if you have brought us something close, I'm willing to approve it, just to help you guys out and get to a decision. But you actually brought something that I kind of like. I mean, I'm not a modernist per se. It's kind of got a modern kind of look to it, but I think that fits. I think the whole design kind of seems integrated to what we have there. I think a lot will ride on the art in public places. I think that could make or break it, truthfully. But I like the geometry of the thing. I like the walls particularly. That gives us, particularly when the trees are overhanging, it'll give us a lot more seating capacity than we have now with the picnic tables. And I think that's a major improvement in and of itself, in addition to the ADA. Please get plenty of electrical outlets up there. And you're talking about one water fountain on one side of it. A second might be nice too, if you have a big group up there. I know just setting up there for wisteria and other things, we oftentimes have a hard time just finding plug-ins. So those are little things, but I think I can support this design. And I also want to say, I know you guys have a lot of meetings, and sometimes this gets a little, democracy can get a little nasty, a little messy, but that's America, right? And you guys are doing a great job. So keep it up.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Arizmendi.
Well, I'll go. I do like the design. I think it looks really good. The good news is it took that long to get to this point. Well, so be it, because I think the outcome is going to be good. I'm just very, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm really disappointed about the arts in public places, because, again, this is years ago. We gave direction to get this done. The money was there. And here we are, and we're still not really sure what it is. So I think at this point, I just want to comment to Pat Elkhorn's comment, is at this point, I'm going to say that the timeline is going to dictate the action that we take. I do agree with you, but we can't let this go on we've used up all our time. So if all that time was spent to get to a good overall design, well, maybe the art is not going to be optimal to what we all think it should be, but we've got to just wrap this up now and move on. So I'm not in favor of going through one more meeting with the CSC to try to hammer this out. So I'll just let staff drive it and come up with something that we can be presented to us, and we'll vote on it from here.
I didn't realize it's been 7 years, and I think Pat and I were commissioners on the Community Services Commission together when we started having these conversations, so it was a lot longer than I remember. There were a lot of the designs that I liked before. Is this something I can live with? Absolutely. Does it serve the purpose of a center place for people to come? Yes. Is it ADA accessible? Yes. Is it pedestrian friendly? Yes. It's very neutral, and I know, I was actually really surprised at how vocal people were on this issue. I think people were more vocal on Kirsten Court issue than they have been with maybe not so much water, but other issues in town, and it garnered a lot of emotion. And so I think this is a nice place for everyone to come to and to agree to, and again, I think it'll serve its purpose. I am not so focused on the arts and public places as to what that is. I think we're going to go with something neutral that works well with everyone. But timing is, I think, critical, again, when you're looking at the overall project. And I hope to work with the Community Services Commission a little bit closer. And I hope you can leverage me, and because I think I'm the liaison. Yes. It is if we're coming to these crossroads again, and how we can help expedite that, also with the assistance with staff. So given that, I'm supportive of this, and I would move to also expedite the arts and public places piece.
Councilmember Goss, art and public places?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I don't really have much choice. Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, I am too. I think that, as with this design, I mean, it has been a long time with the arts and public places, but I'm hoping that the outcome is going to be a good one, and I'm confident that staff and the council now can take off where the CSC has left us, and hopefully drive this home. So I'm good with this as well. So I'll take a motion.
So moved to approve this project as presented.
Okay. So that would be 1, 2, and 3 of the original recommendations, right? Okay.
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. Thank you again, commissioners.
Hey.
Very well done.
Must feel
Yeah,
good, huh?
yeah, it feels good to get this off your back. So, all right, we are going to move on to item number 2 of the discussion, which is the consideration of resolution 1960, amending the general fund balance policy and authorization for a prepayment for CalPERS. What's that? Oh.
Oh, it's here. It's in here, I think. Nobody's information, I think.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, we have 3 recommendations today. Staff is recommending a lump sum prepayment of $3 million to CalPERS for the PERS UAL that will aid in the sustainability of the plan. We're also recommending Resolution 1960, amending the general fund balance policy, and Resolution 1959, approving a pension and OPEB funding policy, which is our next item on the agenda. The City of Sierra Madre has continued to address increasing pension obligations by taking steps to stabilize costs. In this slide, we can see the historic funding ratio for City of Sierra Madre. The average city in CalPERS has a funding ratio of about 70%. And we can see that in fiscal year 2016, Sierra Madre was below that average. And in 2018, prepayment was made. And we can see the increase of about 10% in the funding ratio. And this proposed prepayment will be projected to be at 90% funded, which is above our peer cities. The average in our peer cities is 71%, and we can see that Sierra Madre is way above that. And if you have any questions, I will have I'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I'm still just a little hard to understand the savings. So we make $3 million payment, and basically what is our rate of return? I mean, if we kept the money in our reserve and get roughly less than 2% for it, now we're going to prepay it and it's going to reduce our expenses, but I can't, this stuff is so complicated, it's not like a straight payment. When how they amortize your payments, it's a different payment every year. So how do we calculate exactly what our rate of return is on this?
So CalPERS actually provides a tool spreadsheet for us to determine how we're going to allocate it, 3 million. So we can use that spreadsheet and determine how much the savings will be.
Yeah.
And we can bring that probably at a different meeting.
So Mayor Pro Tem Capocha, before the $5 million additional discretionary payment the council made last year, our total unfunded accrued liability over the course of the repayments was $26 million. Our principal, if you think of it in loan terms, was $14 million. After we made the prepayment, our principal went down $5 million to $9, but our total liability went down $12 million to $14 million. So there's two ways to calculate, and when you see the annual payments, you're thinking about that as principal plus interest. But if we cut down the principal by, this case, a third of what we owe, the $9 million, we expect a further decline in our overall liability, which is amortized over 20 years. The other reason you see the big jump in the payments is when the unfunded accrued liability was first rolled out by CalPERS. They had it on a 30-year window, and they had and they actually planned for this. It's what's called negative amortization, where even though you're paying the principal, it's not enough to cover your liability, so your costs expand every year. So one of the reasons you see the fluctuating payments is the multiple bases, but the other reason is we're looking at both principal and liability at the same time. So when we shorten the window to a 20-year repayment and reverse a negative amortization and then made the $5 million prepayment, it had the largest impact we'll see overall in liability. What we're recommending this time on the $3 million is not to put it straight towards the greatest savings, but to put it towards the greater liability. It does get very complex, but in the end, the actuary report shows you what is expected at a rate of return on a 60-year time horizon. So there's multiple moving numbers, which is why they change.
On a 60-year?
I believe CalPERS has a total 60-year investment time horizon, even though they amortize the UAL over 20 years now.
But the intent with amortizing over 20 years, so they actually raised the amount that everybody has to pay to take it from a 30-year to a 20-year.
That's correct, and while at the same time reducing the amount of return on investment they anticipated, which I believe in 2014 was 7.5 or 7.25%, and now it's been reduced down to 7.
Yeah.
So that's why when cities in 2014 started planning for the UAL, we showed council. It wasn't even like an airplane taking off; it was a rocket. It was straight up.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is flatten that curve.
So is this like, just to use an analogy, if you owe $500,000, you just take out a loan for $500,000 on your house, and it's amortized over a 30-year period, or say a 20-year period. So now you're making a payment to hack off $200,000 of that. So now do you re-amortize it for a $300,000?
That's correct. 300,000 over 20 years.
That's basically what it's
That's correct.
doing? At what interest rate? 7%?
Right now, 7%. I believe CalPERS is projected to lower the overall discount rate in 21 and then in 22 down to 6.75%, but we can get that back.
But that makes your UAL go up when they do that.
Correct, the rate of return over the 20 years. So both things that they do, shortening the timeline and then reducing the expected return, does increase the UAL. It's another reason we look at why it's so important to keep your funding of your pensions as a goal of 100%, because you're dealing with an agency that hasn't shown great regard to the financial struggles that cities and service providers go through. When you look at other cities, a change to the discount rate opens up a multi-million-dollar hole in what they have to pay. But because they're not pre-funding the way this council is, it becomes not only unsustainable, but you see smaller agencies becoming insolvent and larger agencies cutting back on police, fire, and library services.
Right. Yeah, okay. All right, again, I just trying to do my own homework on this, and it's just unbelievably complex. I'm pulling documents off the CalPERS website, and it's just beyond belief, this is a problem, though, because it's hard for the average citizen to kind of understand this stuff. We're trying to boil it down into bite-sized chunks that we can understand after spending hours and hours of trying to make sense of this. So I understand how it is for, the average citizen who, these are just big numbers and we're moving money around, but there quite a bit goes into this, and I just do appreciate what our staff has done here to try to get ahead of this, because again, you show that graph that he showed how the other cities are, and this is just cities that we're comparing with. I mean, you've got Los Angeles, I think, is even worse, and many cities that are just in really bad shape. And the chickens come home to roost, as they say, and eventually taxpayers have to pay for this. So we're trying to do the right thing here to decrease the liability over time, and we're paying for it heavily right now. But from what I can see in the projections, we get over a hump in the curve, and then it's going to be smooth sailing right after we all get off the council. So the next council will reap the benefit of this, which is less payment every year that you're going to have to make. But okay, anyway.
Can I just ask a question building off that? Because I think your first question was really, how much do we think we're going to save on a yearly basis in payments? We haven't really calculated that yet, right? I mean, it's almost something you have to do retroactively.
The Mayor, that's correct. The final number will be calculated by CalPERS retroactively. We are able to get projections from them, but then they have the actual experience of what happens with your retirees, what happens with the returns. So in the chart, we put projected and estimated. CalPERS also waits a year to report, so that $5 million payment is not even fully captured in their actuary yet, and it won't be till later next year, actually. So I think to Mayor Pro Tem's point, when we talked about how quickly the payments were increasing, when we sat down at our first zero-based budget, we looked at circled 2020, 2021 fiscal year, and we saw no way that the city could make it beyond that year because the payments would have been not only unsustainable, but in that year we wouldn't have had the ability to make the payment.
But we haven't, these projections though, right, are based on the $5 million
Based on,
payment?
that's correct, the 5.
So we haven't done that similar thing for the $3 million yet?
That's correct.
Okay. And I guess, well, to Councilmember Capocha's, Mayor Pro Tem's point, I mean, OPEB, how do we view OPEB, right? Because we carry that liability on our own books. So, I mean, I would think that the math there is simpler.
Yeah, OPEB's a little bit different because you may have a different service administrator than CalPERS, and also cities can set and change their own benefit levels, whereas with CalPERS, you're either classic or PEPRA, and you're either miscellaneous or public safety. With OPEB, there's a variety of benefits that change from employer to employer. So where we're at right now on that is we made an additional payment last year to keep it at 85% funded. It had dropped below that. The total value of the plan is much less, but we do plan to treat that like our other obligation healthcare benefit liabilities. We want to keep them at 85% or higher. I'm sorry, pension liabilities.
And the last question is, I always just felt like the rate of return was just, it's like a fixed income rate of return. I mean, if it's 7.75 discount rate, we are getting that as a rate of return, in that that is the discount rate that's being applied to our liability.
So-
So is that wrong in thinking? So in other words, I'm getting a 7.75% return on my $3 million that otherwise would be getting whatever we're getting with LAIF, which is less than 2%.
So for the actuary calculation, though, they'll calculate it at the discount rate. What
Yeah.
you get is actual experience. So when CalPERS has a good year, and I believe they beat projections recently, even though they fell short, you get the actual experience, which is why they wait a year to apply the actuary. Overall, they're confident on, again, their expanded horizon that they'll get X amount of return every year.
But isn't just an easy way, because this is complicated, but an easy way to explain to our residents is we are taking $3 million that otherwise would be sitting in reserves, getting less than 2%, and we are getting at least 6%. I mean, it's probably closer to 7.75 return immediately. I mean, we'll wait and see what they say, but I mean, you're literally tripling the return on that money.
That's correct, Mayor. That's probably
Okay.
the easiest way to
I mean,
explain it.
that's how I view it.
But it could be even more, right?
Yeah, it could be even more, but it's a no-brainer to do it if you have it, right? I mean, it's.
I think so, yes. I think most cities or city managers you talk to, after we started going down this path, if you have the ability to pre-fund, it's the single best thing you can do for
Yeah, all
the
day long.
sustainability of your
It's
future.
like buying a bond, like a no-risk bond, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay. Questions? All right, we'll open this up for public comment, and we haven't opened up 3 yet, right, the OPEB, so.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, how about we do this? Can I open up 3? Do you want to present on that really quickly, and then we'll open up both for public comment and questions?
Yeah. Okay, so we're recommending a pension and OPEB funding policy. The Government Finance Officers Association has recommended that every local government formally adopt a funding policy to ensure that the benefits are funded in a sustainable manner. The advantages of having a funding policy is that it helps maintain sustainability and growing obligations, and managing these obligations helps reduce operating expenses by lowering annual required contributions. The policy also provides a framework to ensure proper management of future liabilities. The proposed funding policy sets the target funded ratio at 100% and the minimum funded ratio at 85%. It also sets the annual contribution to the minimum required per the actuarial report. And each year, the city manager and finance director will conduct an analysis of the funding level and present to city council. If at any given year the funded ratio is below 85%, city manager and finance director will provide the reason why the ratio is low, and they will also provide a recommendation to raise the ratio. City council will then have to approve the recommendation or vote to authorize a lower funding ratio. If at any given year the annual contribution is below the minimum, city manager and finance director will analyze the effect of underfunding the plan, because persistent underfunding will jeopardize the plan's sustainability. City council would then vote to approve the underfunding of the plan. This proposed policy should be reviewed at least once every 5 years, and any recommended changes should be approved by city council.
Thank you very much. Is that microphone working?
Hello?
Okay, yeah, it is.
Was I too far?
No, you're good. Thank you. Any questions on this? Yeah, not from me either. Okay, thank you. We will open this up for questions and public comment. It's complicated stuff, you know. I mean, we'll bring it back here for discussion, but I'll kick it. Anyone want to say a few words?
Well, I'd like to just comment on item 3 here about our policy. This is really good, I think, for, again, those of you who pay taxes here in Sierra Madre. So this is really making the city council actually a little bit more accountable, because it really is devastating for future generations to let this get out of control. And as our city manager has pointed out, just even recently with the 30-year to 20-year amortization, our yearly expense shot right up. And like you said, it was a rocket taking off. And, you know, it's really easy to kick this stuff kick that can down the road. And we're really working very hard not to do this. And so 100% funding as a target is what we're trying to shoot for. And, now we can see some progress towards that. I mean, yeah, the cost is high that we're taking money out of reserves. This money could be used to fix sidewalks and repaint our buildings and plant trees, do a lot of things with it. But this is really important to get on top of the financials here, because this, again, is devastating if we don't. So have other cities created a policy like this? Do you know of, or?
We, Mayor Pro Tem, we were only able to find one other city. I'm sure other cities have done it. The research we did showed us locally Monrovia is the only city. They structured their pension funding policy a little bit different than we did, but from an accountability standpoint, it was a smart move on their part.
Yeah. I just saying about Monrovia too, I just do want to remind people that Monrovia pays a property tax assessment that pays for their pensions as well. That doesn't all come out of general fund.
And a bond.
Yeah, and a bond. They floated a bond to do this too, to get there, but their number looks really good at the moment. But I just want to say that because, it's really important that we don't have that extra property tax assessment on this. We're taking it out of our own, general fund here and our reserves to do this. So I think this is just a really great policy, and I'm really proud to be part of Sierra Madre to implement something like this.
I really can't improve on what you just said. I agree with everything you said. And I think last time we talked about the pension issue, I'm pointing out that it's not just a big problem, it's a devastating problem across the state and other parts of the country as well. And so I think that Sierra Madre, I'm proud to be part of this too. And I credit our staff, our city manager, our financial staff. I credit them with really being bold here and doing the right thing on behalf of our citizens and taxpayers, because this really in the long run is taking care of our taxpayers. They're not going to be on the hook 10 and 15 years from now for the kinds of decisions that other cities are making with their pension fund. So yeah, I totally support this. I think the policy is a great policy. 100% should be the target for everybody everywhere, in my opinion. We only have jurisdiction here. 85% minimum, I think that what that's really saying is that it's an expensive problem, and we may not have the capacity to get to 100%, but it is our goal as a council, and we're gonna get there if we can. So again, kudos to staff, and totally support this.
I'm strangely giddy about this, and this is so exhilarating, and seeing charts like that is just so exciting. City manager sent an article today about pretty much the insolvency of a fire district, and a lot of it was because of pensions and the unfunded liability, and how the liability was growing well beyond what they can pay. And I think even a simpler analogy, I guess in my head when I'm looking at this, is if you have a $100,000, credit card debt, and you have $50,000 sitting in the bank, and thinking about the interest rate and how that grows, and if you can pay that down, the more you can pay down is better when you're looking at the total amount you're going to owe down the line. So there's no question this is really a no-brainer. It's hard to see where other cities are in comparison, and strangely I'm very competitive, and I think it's great for Sierra Madre, but it's going to be really tough, and I think even 3 years ago, 4 years ago when we were sitting in these same chairs, it was dire, and we kept seeing down the line as to what this could possibly do to our city and whether we would stay solvent. So I'm very thankful for our leadership here at the city, and being able to identify dollars that we really wouldn't have identified before, how we've been able to refinance, how we've been able to sell things, and really get out of the mindset that we have to have X amount in reserves. And this is really money better spent. So excited to see that this will be the projections hopefully in 2020. But if I understand correctly, we're not even going to see that maybe until 2021 It's always like a year behind. But the timing for the prepayment is great. The dollars are there, and the funding makes all the most sense to me. So supportive of both.
Well said by all three of my colleagues. I think that to put this into perspective, I think that this is probably the hardest time in history looking forward to in dealing with this problem, because the more that we have PEPRA employees going forward, the more that this is going to become more manageable for cities like us. And it's just, we have a lot more classic employees that we are paying for now, and as we slowly transition to more PEPRA employees, I think that, again, this becomes more manageable. So the fact is, we're being aggressive right now because we are in the era, and this will be probably a historic era looking back at local government, of a crisis in pension management that future generations will actually not hopefully have to deal with as much, just because of the natural progression of pension reform, if you will, and just the makeup of the retirees. So I think that no need to panic. This is probably the hardest time, and so I think this is really good that we're doing this. And we are, what, #1 or something? We got some award in some survey, fiscal management. Sierra Madre is in the top tier, and this is why. I mean, we do things that you would think are common sense and being done everywhere, and they're not, sadly. But you know, this is why we are doing so well on all these metrics and comparables of how cities are managing their finances, because this isn't sexy. This isn't, you don't get headlines for making prepayments for pension liabilities, but it's the right thing to do. So you know, again, congratulations to our city manager, our finance team, for getting this done and for thinking through these hard questions. Motion for items 2 and 3. So it's 1959, 60, and in the OPEB funding policy. Mr. Goss?
Move to approve both.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move on to, does anyone need a break, or you guys are okay? Item number 4, the amending the city's classification plan and salary matrix for executive management and confidential exempt positions. Mr. Hernandez.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Staff is recommending City Council approve Resolution 1962 modifying the city's classification and plan and salary matrix for the executive management and confidential exempt positions. On September 24, 2019, City Council discussed options in regards to compensation for management positions of the city. This recommendation takes into account your direction, and I'll be available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Thank you. We'll open this up. Public comment or questions? All right, bring it back. Any discussion?
Well, it's pretty much in order of what we discussed it last time, and here we have back the direction we gave, and
yep.
So good job.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 19-62.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Moving on to item number 5, regarding our special election and urgency ordinance, potential for filling a city council member vacancy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. At the October 22nd meeting, the council member Denise Del Mar submitted her letter of resignation. At that meeting, council provided staff with, council was provided options to fill the vacancy and subsequently directed staff to return to the next meeting with an urgency ordinance repeating Sierra Madre Municipal Code Section 2.04.090, which provides the procedures to fill that vacancy. Council also directed staff to return with a resolution calling for an election and a special election. The elections will be held November 3rd of 2020. The special election will be held at the regular municipal election to fill the vacated seat, and the successful candidate will serve until November 2022, which is when Councilmember Denise Delmar's seat would have finished. Before you this evening are resolutions 1963 and urgency ordinance 1419U. Upon approval of urgency ordinance 1419U, which is the ordinance that would repeal Sierra Madre Municipal Code Section 2.04.090, relating to the procedure for filling a city council member vacancy. Upon council's approval, the urgency ordinance will immediately go into effect. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. To be clear, we are not talking about an actual process for appointing a council member. This is just to set the election and then repeal the existing ordinance regarding the appointment. So with that, any questions on either of those?
I just have a quick question. It's just a clarification. I remember, what makes it urgency ordinance versus a regular ordinance? Because I remember this discussion saying, oh, it doesn't need to be urgent. Is it just a timing issue again?
No second reading, right?
Right, and an urgency ordinance, first of all, it requires a 4/5 vote, so all of you would need to support it. And that's correct. It's introduced and adopted and goes into effect all on the same night. You are required to make findings, urgency findings of some kind to preserve the health, safety, and welfare. So, for example, urgency findings for this ordinance may be to provide the maximum opportunity for the council to consider, if it chooses to consider an appointment. The field is wider, so to speak. You would not be restricted by the existing procedure that's set forth in your ordinance. And if otherwise, we would have to do a first reading, a second reading, and then another 30 days. And that is going to take 60 more days to get to the point where the council might decide whether or not to appoint and what the process would be. So that's why. Those would be your urgency findings.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, we'll open this up for comments, questions from the public. And bringing them back. I don't think there's much discussion on the setting of the election, on the urgency ordinance. Anyone care to opine, weigh in, make a finding, present reasons why you think that this is something we should be doing?
I like the findings of the city attorney.
Yeah, I mean, I like those. I would adopt those. Anything else? Yeah, I'll just add, I think that we want as much flexibility in this process as possible. I found that the existing ordinance, as it stands, which I voted on and I helped adopt, to be totally clear, is very restrictive, and I don't think it serves the best interests of the community. So I'm in favor of adopting it as an urgency ordinance, if you guys agree.
Agree.
So we can take a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 16-63 for the election and the urgency ordinance to adopt that at number 1419-U.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're good with it?
Oh, aye.
Okay, so that's for all four of us on both. Okay. Any items for future agendas? We will not be meeting later this month because of Thanksgiving, and then we have one meeting next month, so any items for agendas in the new year?
Well, I suppose we should talk about whether we want to fill the position for
Sure.
Councilmember Delmar.
Yep. I would say we should agendize that, and after the first of the year. Any other items? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.